Okay. Hello, everybody. Congrats on making this far. My name is Seungmoon. I'll be chairing this round. Now to begin. Yeah, next to me, we have panel Sae-bom, Yeonsue, Yooran, Youngjae. Um, yeah, we'll wait for Yeonsue, and then we'll proceed. And so we'll be using a handcuff app. So you're gonna hear a ring from the application after 1 and 6 and 7 minutes. And although we have an app, please time yourselves. And without further ado, on the motion, this House supports the use of golden handcuffs by the West to aid transition from dictatorship to democracy. I'd like to invite the Prime Minister to the podium. Here.
My name is Jeongmin Sohn, preferred pronoun she, her. I prioritize POIs from the closing. Sure, panel, we are discussing the motion that this House would use golden handcuffs by the West to make the transition from dictatorship to democracy, right? First, I'd like to talk about what golden handcuffs are exactly in the opening government's case of point of view. We think that this offering immunity is a trade-off for dictators stepping down to make democracies, right? So we want to talk about the stakeholders that are most important in today's status quo. The first is obviously the West, right? The West states that are democratic, capitalist states in today's day and age. And also, the second most important stakeholders are the public and the minorities experiencing violation of human rights in these dictator states. And last but not least, we have the general public, the people in the gray area who want more economic revenue to make them into to get them living in a better, stronger country, right? With that said, I'd like to go into now characterizing democracy. What is democracy, right? So we want to talk about, we generally know what democracy is in the means of like how it's like grassroots democracy, people get to choose what kind of country they're living in, all kind of that. The state is for the people by the people. So in a democratic state, we can expect the democracies to be more for the people, understanding a basic consensus of like human rights and how people should be incentivized to work harder, because democracy is closely related to capitalism. It's aligned with capitalism in today's status quo because people have the incentive to make more money, and since they have the freedom in this democratic state, they also have the motivation to work harder and get better recognition in their society. And also, the most important thing about democracy that we want to emphasize today is that democracies don't fight each other. Democracies have a consensus not to fight each other explicitly, right? With that said, I'd like to introduce my arguments. First is that introducing this motion and letting it pass will foster more peace in today's world. Second is that there will be better trade, economic revenue. Third is that there will be less violation of human rights, and my DPM will talk about the counterfactuals in today's debate. We will talk about, the OG will talk about why this applying this one strategy in today's debate will foster so much better advantages on the government side and why opposition can't have on any of that. Moving on to my arguments now. Okay, so the first argument is that it will foster more peace, right? I just told you that democracies don't fight each other, right? So, for example, if you take the example of like deterrence like nuclear powers, we think that democracies make liberal institutions in order to not use these nuclear powers. Take the example of IAEA, right? This is the liberal international organization that makes agreements on how nuclear power should not be used like radically, right? We make agreements. We have a place to do all the communication. We make agreements. We deter people from using these nuclear powers by binding them down by these agreements, right? Democracies make these kinds of institutions so that there is a more peaceful world where, although there may be deterrence, people don't just randomly fight each other, and people don't like keep everything a secret and like pull random espionage shit just because like they want better things for their dictator state, right? So we can see that on the West of democratic capitalist societies, there is more communication and there is more alignment and understanding because we have these international organizations, right? International organizations foster such communication, bringing together and possibly negotiating what the states want for themselves, right? So if we see the problem we see in the status quo is that the dictatorships or the states that were from dictatorship past likely cause more problems in the world, right? Look at Russia, Soviet Union, and it used to be a past dictatorship, a state in the past. It's a pseudo dictatorship even right now. And look at the war on Ukraine it's causing. It's in the liberal institution, the UN Security Council, but because it's a powerful state in that Security Council, there is not a lot of things that the democratic states can do. So what we think is that if we pull this person down with the golden handcuffs, chances are this person, this dictator, or at least the pseudo dictator in Russia right now, that he can be pulled down, and we can have more power to foster more peace through international organizations because we want that for the West, who are democratic capitalist societies and states, right? And take the example of Kim Jong-un. He is like the leader of North Korea, right? He is currently in dictatorship very explicitly, and it's very frustrating for the democratic states to see how different it is and how difficult democratic communications and negotiations is done, and everybody's anxious what Kim Jong-un's gonna do next because he might just randomly pull out a missile and just throw it at South Korea, and we don't know if war is gonna happen just because he is in a dictatorship state, right? So stepping down, letting this person step down with the trade-off that is the golden handcuff will foster more secret democracy and therefore more peace in the world because that's what the Western countries want as well, right? I'd like to go into my second argument, which is about better economic trade. Okay, so I told you that democracies are bound by these communications in the international organizations. They are also bound by economic trade. IOs and international organizations foster trade as well. Think about WTO, right? They are bound by these kinds of economic revenue that they make with each other because they trade off with each other, and because if we have the dictatorship state trading off into democracy, chances are they will likely open their resources, and we can have these new resources getting traded off by the already democratic states, and this can foster better economic revenue, and this revenue will in turn be a reason for the incentive for the people of the democratic states to not fight each other, which is a good cycle because we have economic trade coming in, and we also foster peace in this progress, right? So definitely these kinds of like economic trade is much more plausible on our side because on their side they are just basically just a dictatorship state, and chances are if they don't pass this motion on the opposition bench, this is going to be like North Korea is going to be shut down forever. DMZ is just going to get only more and more like natural whatever, right? So in the end, the dictator, the one person that is in the individual level of influence, who has the most influence on the people, if he or she steps down, the greater chances are this state that is now turned into a democracy we can have all the advantages I told you about on our side of the bench, right? Last but not least, my third argument is about better human rights. Look at DPRK right now in Kim Jong-un. There are so many cases of violation of human rights, right? People starve, children don't go to school. Look at their pigs and cows, like from memes. Did you see like the pigs and cows? They are all starving down to their bones, right? So this is not only like human rights, but now it's like violation of animal rights too. And it's just people like the living standard of North Korea and the dictatorship states are so horrible, right? So we can foster better human rights, and today's status quo, if we let this golden handcuff pass, and the opening government is not saying that the dictator will be excused of every illegal activity after this is passed, right? We're saying that only the immunity only fosters to the extent to which he has committed through the dictatorship state. So these were for these reasons.
Uh, Congratulations to making the finals, and be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so based on the speech presented by the PM, I think we agree that democracy is a good thing, but their argument based on that democracy that gold handcuffs lead to a better democracy is wrong. So we think that this debate is really about if gold handcuffing actually leads to better democracy in the state, and we believe that it is not the case. Okay, so I think we have to start with the status quo. The status quo is that the strong Western, comparatively strong Western world is trying to bring democracy to the world. And to better achieve this, we think that that gold handcuffs do not give a good way to do this. So, and we're going to prove this, but first I'm going to go through some rebuttals on their case. Okay, so first of all, they talk about how implemented democracy leads to peace and better economic value, but they don't really address why this is the case. There's no mechanization as to why the gold handcuffing act would actually lead to a better democracy. Okay, so, and also they talk about the extent of the golden handcuffs, but by definition of the motion, that it exempts the dictators from certain punishments, and therefore their accountability of the worst crimes they have committed during their dictator rulership is completely gone. So I don't think their point stands on that it helps better human rights in that it prevents accountability for the action of the dictatorships. And this leads to my main point. How is it that direct accountability of the dictator leads to better democracy? Okay, so by not using, so what happens in the status in the counterfactual where people are using handcuffs golden handcuffs to actually to take down leaders, to take down dictatorships. Sure, they might come down from power, but let's look at the extent of the crimes committed by dictators. It is reasonable to say that in a dictatorship, people are under duress, and they have their rights taken away. Since the basic role of a country is to actually give the rights of the people and actually express their needs and then have their best interest be used in the country, dictatorship does not work like that because it takes the interest of the dictator itself and not the people. So it is likely to say that the human rights of it is easy to say that human rights of the people of the country is being ignored. So in this kind of status quo, where there are lots of practical harms to people, such as bad infrastructure and taking only the interest of the dictatorship into account, therefore leading to bad healthcare and education, there's the dictator who has been in power needs to be accountable to make it right to the people of the country. However, what happens if they use a golden handcuff? They are completely exempt of the punishments that they deserve for bringing such harm to the country, and therefore they are not being able to be held accountable. So, yes.
So isn't it reasonable to think that these dictators will not be allowed to roam free, but rather kept under surveillance without the threat of just physical harm?
Okay,
They're criminals.
so we're going to talk about that in my second point. Okay, so my first point is that what is the impact of actually not being able to hold these dictators accountable? Well, first of all, the trust for the Western democratization process is hampered. Okay, so the purpose of this golden handcuff is to aid the democratization of this country, right? So if we do not hold the dictator accountable, how would the people of the country actually think? Well, first of all, I think that since they have been under constant dictatorship and under an iron fist rule, they are likely to have many anger issues. many complaints about the dictatorships, and they are very angry in that they want to get rid of the person in charge. However, if the West actually just lets the person go and does not have any punished for what their crimes, the trust of the Western organizations and countries that actually make sure that the dictator is actually safe in their counterfactual, they would be angry. And so because the West goes against the interests of the people, they're less likely to implement the Western model of democracy. What does this mean? So they just forgive one dictator and then just forgive them. So what is likely to happen? It is likely that the people do not implement the democracy pushed by the Western side because they have complaints against how the Western side works, and maybe and it is possible that it is just replaced by another dictatorship with opposing views and things that such as stay strong as you'll kill the person who is responsible for your hurting past history.
POI.
Okay, no, thank you. Okay, so even if so what is the harm even if they do step down peacefully? Okay, so first of all, we believe that a structure where the Western country actually takes swift military force is actually better in the end goal of the things. Well, first of all, once again, the person is still alive. So even if the person does step down, it is reasonable that they still have a supporting party behind the person, and that is a risk to the country. Because if they manage to find means to actually take back power or cause chaos within the country, then it would not be better for the country. Okay, so instead a swift taking of action, such as an assassination of the leader, would be more effective because it's a direct show of power of a direct show of how strong the West is. And because this direct show of power, the West is able to better enforce and better show that they're able to remove these dictators that are harming the people, and therefore the people are more likely to trust the process of the West and believe that they are capable in creating a better world for them. And also, second, it also works as a way to prove a message that the West actually takes the people's opinions into consideration, because more likely than not, the people want the dictators to be dead. And to fulfill the wants of the country is the best way to get them to follow your model of democracy. And therefore, overall, the golden handcuffs is very detrimental to the implementation of Western democracy in these kind of countries. So overall, our case is much stronger than theirs in that, because we actually explain why it is the case that golden handcuffs do not actually contribute to the democratization of the country that they so talk about, and we bring a more realistic model of what the people actually want. Therefore, we are proud to propose.
Speech of Yooran.
My name is Nuri. I am Deputy Prime Minister of the Open Government, and I prioritize the alliance with proposing, preferably on the government. Shout out to Button, our society treasurer, who skipped homework to come and watch us debate. So we love you, and I love all of my society members as well. Okay. I will begin my speech in 3, 2. Judge panel, our Prime Minister talked about the principles and benefits of the neutral pathway. I will now explain, firstly, why this works. Secondly, why it's better than any of the counterfactuals, including the counterfactual that opposition bench has currently given us. But first, some rebuttals on what opposition said. So they say that making dictators take direct accountability is better, and that in a dictatorship, that human rights are ignored. But as we said to you, we're not excusing the dictators from getting any punishment whatsoever. Rather, we are saying, as a trade-off for giving up your power, in which you have been wrongly using against the people, that we will be protecting you from physical harm. But again, we think that it's reasonable to think that we won't let these people just roam free and do whatever the hell they want. And then they say that also that dictator revival will somehow happen under our side of the bench. But considering the West has an incentive to save its face, we think that they will try their best not to let this happen. Why does this happen? We think that countries that want to show off that they are strong, that they are capable, that they take care of their allies, will probably try to not have these countries in which the narrative is created that they helped to like rescue from dictatorship, not fall back into dictatorship, because that makes them look bad. It makes them look as if they have failed to implant democracy in these states. And so we believe that Western states, using the power that they have within status quo, will utilize this to the best of their extent to not let this happen again. So we think that that is false characterization of what the West states actually are. And then they say that people have anger issues about the dictatorship. Judge, we ask you, what do the people actually want? Do they want the death of a dictator, or do they want societal reform? Do they want reform of the structure that disbenefited them for a bunch of years? We think that it is the latter that we want, and we think that using the golden handcuffs is a more effective way and a more peaceful way that does not violate human rights, such as much as the other counterfactuals that I will give to you in this debate. So why do these people want to not step down? We think that the fear of like revenge is certainly an aspect of what makes dictators not want to step down, why they want to stay in power for so long. They know that they have been wronging the people. They're afraid of the repercussions that will come back to them as soon as they step down or pull down, and so they have the incentive to keep on pursuing power so that nobody can harm them within status quo. But if we offer them physical protection, we think that this will incentivize them in some aspect, at least, if this is the thing that they're most scared of, that to step down, to give up their power, and to lead into a democracy. And then, so this is why we think that this will work. And so giving you the counterfactual, starting with opposition's counterfactual, that assassination of the dictator would be better. We think that this is a terrible idea. Because as we told you, democracies don't fight other democracies. States should not be fighting other states. That's like the basis consensus of what a lot of international organizations and such stand for. We think that this is largely against the major interest of global society, and so we think that. So thank you later. We think that if execution of one dictator happens, then global society will necessarily take their time to penalize or at least criticize the Western state that has executed the dictator, because we think that this is a very violent way of handling it. Furthermore, we think that this leads to more chances of negative repercussions within global society. We think that this is frankly a gateway for war to break out. Why is the US, if it has all of these resources to assassinate Kim Jong-un, not doing it now? It's because it'll inevitably blow up into a huge global conflict in which nukes will be thrown. And we think that in the interest of global peace, which is better for all actors within global society, this is a terrible counterfactual. We think that the more reasonable counterfactual that should be coming from opposition side is that firstly, the country itself pursues violent rebellion. But as we told you, human rights are an extremely important issue in today's debate, and we think that first, human rights will inevitably be violated underneath this process of violent revolution. We think that more people, just like in general calculus, have the chance to be killed or injured or hurt psychologically under this violent rebellion. And besides, the possibility of this becoming true in a dictatorship state where many people are indoctrinated into agreeing with the dictator is very, very low. We think that this is unjustifiable, and because in order for a rebellion to take place in the first place, we think that there has to be some level of certainty that it will succeed. And then secondly, the West won said violent rebellion. We think again that if this is caught out, we don't know if the West can do this sneakily, but if this is caught
out by other states within the global society, this will also lead to like the image that they are disrupting global peace. And then thirdly, not doing anything. Yes.
Okay, so your assumption that democracies only do peace is wrong because Russia and Ukraine are both by definition democracies. Please explain.
So we're to explain to you that countries should not be fighting each other on principle. We think that global peace should be the end goal of global society, and we are telling you that because like this is the most humane method, whether it be not like addressing the people's anger issues, which we think is a non-relevant factor in this debate, because sometimes giving the people whatever the fuck they want is great. We think that this is the most peaceful and effective way to like make this dictator step down from the present position that he has, in which he is persecuting people like this endless power. And we think that if the dictator remains physically unharmed in the process, then so be it. We think that we need structural reforms above all others, and we think that this is the fastest and most efficient and most humane way of doing it. And for these reasons, OG.
Okay, before I start my speech, I'm gonna receive the POIs during the 5 minutes to 6 minutes, and you can say loud, stand up. I will eventually take one POI. So now I'm gonna give my speech in 3, 2, 1. First, the opening government doesn't really understand what the whole point our opening opposition suggests. So we support the increase of the democracy, but the thing is that we don't believe that golden handkerchief is the best way to make this goal achieved. So first, what PM said, I think first of all, opening government have very limited view in what democracy is. So they said that the democracy's first priority is they want to avoid the fight and avoid the war. Yeah, it's true, but we believe that democracy's first priority is to increase this democracy in the world. So if to make this goal achieved, they are willing to make an intervention to the other countries to increase their democracy. And let's move on to the other thing. Well, the deputy prime minister says the Western countries is just using this opportunity to show their power in the international relationship. Well, yeah, well, it might be true. Yeah, they have those kinds of incentive because they wants to keep their power in the international relationship. But even though they have this kind of incentive, but they are still using this power to increase the democracy in the world in a better way. So even though it's true, but isn't it still better to change in democracy, whether it's not sure it will keep this democracy or because making the democracy sure to maintain in those kinds of dictatorship world is actually not true in the opening government side. So it's both world is symmetrical thing. So at least we're using the better alternative that I'm gonna suggest later in my speech. So we believe that at least even though the Western countries have this kind of incentive, it's still better to use this power to lead the increase of the democratic in those kinds of dictator roles. So also the deputy prime minister mentioned what the citizens of these dictatorship countries really want. Yeah, the DPM mentioned that what the citizens really want is to make a reform of their state. Yeah, it's true. We agree with that. So these citizens are the victim of dictatorship, and they have been struggle and still get harmed, and they get harmed of their human rights from this dictatorship from the long time. So we believe that they want to get punished and let those dictatorships to get down from the power. But so to make a new fresh start, to rebuild those countries, to make a new opportunity for those citizens, I think just remain totally banishing these kinds of dictatorship or dictator groups is more better fresh start for those citizens. So I thank you. It's a good fresh start. So first, now I'm gonna prove why these kinds of golden handcuff is likely, the likelihood of this golden handcuff can lead to the change of democracy is low. So first, incentives of dictators. So those kinds of dictators are, once they keep their power, and once they keep their power, and their priority is not the right of citizens, their priority is whether they can keep their power in this country. So if even the Western countries suggest golden handcuffs to these dictators, would they really allow this? Would they really agree to let go their power? No, I don't think so. Well, first, because so we believe that it is highly to get rejected. And second, so if we already suggest these handcuffs, then the dictators know, oh, now Western powers are trying to let me down. I'm in a real big risk. So they will try. So there will be severe backlash from those dictators. Why? Because they will use all their power, all their military powers, everything they can use to maintain their power as a dictator. So this will make a bigger chaos from the country, and we believe that it will eventually give a severe harmful impact to those citizens who are living in the dictator countries. Second, no, thank you. So what is the alternative we're suggesting against the golden handcuff is the military power. So the military power we're suggesting is not the using, or not just not harming, not attacking those kinds of citizens in a dictatorship power. So we're trying to use this military power only to ruin those kinds of dictatorships. The group who supports those kinds of dictator groups. So by using this military power and totally banish and totally let down those kinds of dictatorship from the country, we believe that we cut all the possibilities that those kinds of dictators can remain from the country and seek the other chance for them to go up to the power again. So, and we're suggesting a fresh start to this citizens. Yes.
Okay, so you killed all of the dictators, co-conspirators. So how many people would the West kill under this metric of revenge, or I don't know,
First, okay, thank you. First, does Western countries are making an intervention to all dictator countries? I don't think so. So there are several countries that Western countries doesn't always make intervention to all kinds of dictator countries. They only make some intervention to specific countries that match their interests. So I don't think what PY from the opening government suggests to us is not very serious point in this debate. So second, to gain the trust from the citizens of those dictator countries, we believe that our alternative is much better than the gold handcuff. Because if in the government's world, using the gold handcuff, citizens can know whether they're a dictator, whether to them a criminal of those dictators or really get punished. It's not sure because they can never know. So in our world, we're just giving a clear punishment so that everyone can know. So by doing this, we can gain the trust from those citizens. So because why gaining a trust from those citizens are important? Because when we are going to change their ruling party as a dictator to the democracy, citizens are the main component of those countries. So we still need the support of those citizens to make the change to the democracy more safer and clear. Thank you.
About speech, I'll call upon the member of opposition, the podium. Here, here. Member of government.
start my speech. So the opening opposition comes up and says they agree that democracy is still good and that golden handcuffing is, however, golden handcuffing strategy is not the best way to turn into democracy. We will prove to you in my speech why this is exactly the opposite. Golden handcuffing is the best way to turn into democracy. So one important thing that was said in the opening part of the debate was how golden handcuff leads to a better democracy. However, we believe, although this is important, and we'll explain about this also, we believe there are some things that need to be discussed before this. For a better democracy, what do we need? We believe that for a better democracy, we need a state, we need a stable state, and we need people, and we need a narrative for democracy. And in my speech, I'll prove to you exactly why. By using this gold handcuff strategy, we can have a more stable state, and we can save the people, protect the citizens, and also we can implement a peace narrative that can be given to the nation for a stable democracy even in the future. So before I begin, I want to start off by analyzing what the dictator actually is in this debate. So dictator has all the resources. So if he is in a stable situation, there is no incentive for them to even accept this gold handcuff strategy. So the very specific narrative that we are talking about in this debate is when there is certain fracturing or certain kind of movement or a revolution that is currently happening that is incentivizing the dictator to even think about accepting the gold handcuffing strategy. Because if there was no fracturing, if the dictator was perfectly safe, he would have no incentive at all to move on to even thinking about accepting the gold handcuff strategy. So I'm saying that this situation is likely a situation when the dictator is not perfectly stable and democracy is likely to be implemented anyways, although it cannot be sure. And when it's implemented, other from golden handcuffing strategy, it will likely go into things like revolutions or other methods that will result in killing or harming the dictator and the government itself. So as to the extension of this argument, I'm going to explain why it's going to protect the citizens to use the golden handcuff strategy. So let's say we do not use golden handcuff strategy. Let's say the citizens or the West are trying to just kill off everyone in the government. Let's say we're trying to kill the dictator. What will the dictator do? Of course, the dictator does not want to die. And even if they're weak, the dictator is the person who's still the strongest in the country. He is in charge of the military in the country. He's in charge of all the resources in the country. So even if the revolution is big, the dictator will do his best, use all the resources, use all the military forces that they have for them to be safe. They will not hesitate to kill off the citizens if it is needed for them to live. And this will inevitably happen because if not golden handcuff strategy, as I've said, dictators will going to be assassinated or killed off like the opposition said. And because of this, if we do not use the golden handcuff strategy, it will inevitably lead to much harm of the citizens' lives themselves. So by using the golden handcuff strategy, we're suggesting you, without these conflicts where citizens are dying off, people are dying off, we suggest to you, by using the golden handcuff strategy, we can actually ensure the safety of our very citizens that we need to protect, the number one protection we need in order for democracy to even begin. Our second argument about how it will lead to a more stable state is connected to how we can actually protect the most important human resources of this nation. So I am telling you, in a dictatorship, even if it's a dictatorship country, there are people who are running the country. And if it's a golden handcuffing strategy, what will likely happen is the dictator is going to be turned down and kept safely, and the other important human resources are going to be kept in that nation to continue running the nation. However, in their world, when they kill off the dictator, what will likely happen? The revolution will not likely happen with just killing the dictator. The people will be angry. The people will think that the people who work with the dictator are automatically people that are for the dictator, even if that necessarily is not the case. And what is the thing that we lose from this? The thing that we lose from this is the important human resources that actually have an experience in running the country. who actually have an experience in diplomacy, in economy, in international relations themselves. They are the resources that we at least need in order for the state to sustain. So in this sense, we believe that the opening government's case about peace and economy is a good case. However, we believe that in order for that to be true, we need human resources. And in order for us to sustain human resources, we give you a recognition of how golden handcuff strategy ensures that. So moving on to another argument about staying on the argument about human resources and how it will, in the long run, be good for the country. So the country is weak in the status quo because if they change democracy just now, they are unstable and they need some people who actually know how to do the work. And in order for that to work, we need to keep the human resources who are not necessarily for the dictator itself. If they do not sustain, they will need to inevitably rely on other countries. Okay.
So why do you think the dictators will just kindly accept the golden handcuff and let down their power?
Of course, they might not kindly accept the golden handcuff. We're talking about a situation where the dictators are in a situation they have to consider the golden handcuff. If they do not accept the golden handcuff, of course, we cannot implement it. That is just common sense. Okay, moving on to our third argument about how we can implement a narrative for democracy. So, peace narrative is an important factor in democracy, as the opening government also mentioned. Peace narrative, but we're saying that we are going to give them a narrative because the people in that country know that even dictators were not killed off. Even like government officials were not killed off, even if they did some wrong. We did not kill them. And this is a very important value in democracy because in democracy, violence is not a thing. So because if through like revolution, like government officials will kill off, when some problem happens in society later on, people will think, oh, we can just kill them off again. We can just make a revolution again. We can just kill the government officials again. That's the kind of thing that they will think if revolutions happen. But in golden handcuff society, because we know that peace is possible and we have already resolved things through peace, people will think, yeah, we shouldn't do violence. We can solve this peacefully, leading to a stable democratic nation and a narrative. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. I'd like to call upon the member of opposition to the podium. Yooran.
Okay. So I'll start with two, so maybe too long. Okay, so today we're debating another motion. This House supposed to use of golden handcuffs by the West to aid the transition from dictatorship to democracy. I would like to note and first point out that in today's motion, we're talking about is using golden handcuffs by the West going to aid and help build a democracy. And here, I think our opening government talked about how democracy is really good. So anyway, our point is golden handcuffs is golden handcuffs a way to reach democracy? And here, I think we should also point out that by meaning this democracy, I'm talking about democracy, we mean a stable and lasting democracy. So first, let me move on to my arguments, and then during those arguments, I will also rebut to some of opposition's cases. All right, government's case. Sorry. So first, what we push for is to create a better democracy, which is a democracy that is fulfilled maybe a little slowly than golden handcuffs by using golden handcuffs, but rather bring more stability and make it last longer. So we have to note that, as the opening government said, a democracy is where the government is made by people and is for the people. However, So in this case, we know that in democracy, people are really important. However, if you first, through golden handcuffs, do not let these dictators go without punishment. Do like go these dictators without punishment, or at least like with like a very small amount of punishment, because dictators aren't just going to say, okay, I'll make a deal with you, and then you could, just punish me severely. That's not the case. Dictators will most likely come down from their place when they have like a very good negotiation on their side as well. So in this case, number one, what if you use golden handcuffs, then you actually stimulate like distrust from the people. Anyway, if you did something wrong, you're not punished. You're punished by the very least. And then this also destroys the value of democracy, which is based on trust and responsibility. We know that in democracy, which is very closely related and tied to capitalism, that you have to take responsibility for certain actions that you take. However, in this case, when you use golden handcuffs, you're not actually implying this message. Rather, you're giving a distorted message of democracy that you're not being punished. You're not going to be as punished, and you can actually always negotiate like how you act. So this will create a distorted image of democracy, and this will, secondly and most importantly, stir fear among people. How can you? I'll take that later. So how can you How can you like stabilize a democracy, make a democracy, which is your ultimate goal, which is the West, which is the ultimate goal of the West in this motion? How can you ensure that how can you ensure that the democracy will be stable if the people that have to carry out this democracy have to vote for their leaders, have to act out in the government, like fear this entire government system? How can you like convince them that this is a really good system for you? And I think moving on to my third argument, this will actually, if you use golden handcuff, this will actually lead to the possibility of another dictator coming up, because it also sends a bad social message and an incorrect social message that you can actually like perform whatever you want. Like even though this dictator is gone, you can also try to be the number 2 dictator, because that first dictator did go unpunished, or at least we okay, not unpunished, but they were like less punished than they should have. So let me move on to my arguments about the citizens and the people. So about the citizens and the people, these are the people who actually like carry out democracy. Why? And this will, and if you give the right and correct message to the people, this will ensure that you have a more stable democracy, which is your ultimate goal, which is the ultimate goal of the West in this motion. Then I would also like to go about, one second. I would also like to go about the human resources that are closing government talked about. So they talked about how they would like this the golden handcuff would reserve. I'll take that later. Would reserve like human power, human resource, and like you need leaders to run this country. However, let me point out that if you got rid of the dictator, most likely the people who survived with the dictator were using like they were advocating the dictator's agenda and what he wanted. So we do not think that it is reasonable enough to put your trust in people that have been working with the dictator. Let me move on. I'll take that later. And let me move on also to our suggestion, what we suggest, because we believe that opening opposition's case of killing and assassinating the dictator will not be good, because it will create an impression that the West cannot be trusted, because they just killed like one of our leaders, one of our people. So what we suggest is we put like global sanction as the West, economic global sanctions on the dictator. So what this brings about 2 impacts. Number 1, it will be more difficult for the people to live, which will make the dictator like the fault of the dictator, because of the fault of the dictator. Okay, yeah.
So you say that people will like get the wrong message, but won't people be reasonable enough to understand that golden handcuffs is a special circumstance, and that not all criminal or like civil cases will be like this in the future?
But I think it's still, they have been directly impacted by like what the
what the dictator has done, do you think I think they will weigh more on that. I don't think they'll have like enough, they still want the dictator to be punished. Let me move on to the global sanctions that I've been talking about. This will bring about two main impacts. Number one, it will make a legitimate reason for the people to hate the dictator and not the West, because it was the dictator's action that actually made the people's life more difficult. This will in turn make an internal conflict of people internally, not from the outside, not from the West, trying to kill like the dictator. However, people on the inside will start having like greater negative feelings against the dictator, because economic sanctions have directly affected them. So correct to oppose. Thank you.
For my case,
Before going to start, I would like to say thank you to Kyungbin for being teammate. It's such a nice experience as been exchanged. Yeah. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Slightly distract toward CO. What is exactly CO bring to you in this speech? One, they talk to you that how exactly like, yeah, fear of democracy is really hard because it's really hard to compensate. Notice in this motion, we're using the word transition, which means it doesn't our burden of proof to convincing them, but this is our burden of proof. This is a way for you as a US to aid using this as a blueprint for you. There's no way we're going to convince like which one is better or is better like. This is exactly that we're going to talk about. This can be considerate, just like what Kyungbin said. But second, they talk all that we say to you only regarding about legitimate reason, regarding about internal conflict and sanction itself. This is going to have negative feelings from this itself. But we're also questioning about this thing. Why? Because from the society, the moment itself, is that the negative feeling from the society itself is really destructive and it's really powerful, because the characteristic of the society from the dictatorship is really fear, just like what you say. Second, they say to you like there's a limitation from them because the dictatorship is also like it's really stubborn. Never explain, even if they're going to explain in the second speaker, it's already too late. But I think at the end of the day, CO and OO simply bring something like, this is not something we should be proud of. All of this golden handcuffs is not something we should be proud of, but I'm going to, respond on these things. But engage to the OO. What exactly OO simply to you? OO simply bring to you, regarding about these things like, they talk to you like, they simply say like, the assassination is going to be really big. But how exactly the assassination is not going to be effective anyway? Because even if that, or assuming that you're going to kill the Kim Jong-un, basically, new Kim Jong-un is going to be more anyway at the end of the day. So basically, assassination is not going to be effective anyway, because at the end of the day, it's not about the people, but it's about the mindset itself. Dictatorship is going to be ruling at the end of the day. But thirdly, talking about these things, we simply, let's say, like all of this from the opposition, never even prove to you why this is going to be really better. Because at the end of the day, they just being denial, they just giving the assassination, but this is being problematic because the moment that you're being denial, your hostages, you don't even give it away. So we're simply debating about like US using this as a blueprint. Denial is not enough, but at least in our side of the house, we'll already mechanizing and also prove, something like this is why this should be justified. But thirdly, let's engage toward what exactly that I want to bring to you to Kyungbin. Kyungbin already bring to you so many things regarding about like so many things. So basically, Kyungbin talk to you that how exactly like is going to protect government official. Why this is going to be likely to happen? Why? This here's the new extension. Because US interest is want to make sure like, every country need to be democratic. Because this is exactly like what the blueprint and US agenda. But actually, talking about dictatorship, the characteristic of dictatorship is really, really stubborn. If you're going to come something, will comes route, for example, like you want an assassination or just like, hey, change your country to become more democratic. It's going to be really difficult, right? Because it just comes to us. Therefore, this is actually like we need to be soft approach to them to easily to make sure changing the country to be more democratic. So therefore, at least there is actually like safety net for the government official to be safety For example, like this is what Kyungbin told you. This is a safety for the protection for the government official itself. So at least government official can have a safety net and also like escape plan. For example, like they know exactly that their country, not you, their country is not really stable because they know that country is not like superpower just like what US is, US itself. But talking about the dictatorship, talking about this country, even if that how strong you are, at the end of the day, this country that really strong is only US and China. But talking about this thing, US want to intervene you, so therefore there is probability to happen that your country is going to be intervened simply more coerced by the US, but simply there is no safety net for you as a country to make sure, like, oh, is there China also have incentive to help you as a dictatorship, right? No, because like there is no same value itself. What does it mean? It means it shows to you at the end of the day, they need to consider themselves as escape plan to make sure that they are going to go. But two, regarding about one of manifestation like regarding the democratic, it's really hard to implement the democratic things in the dictatorship. Why? Because this is exactly what I'm going to extend from the peace narrative will exist from the Kyungbin side. A, already talked to you that this is really stubborn. Like for example, like we know exactly they're really stubborn to make sure. So therefore, with this golden handcuff, it's going to easily approach to manifest. They imply, for example, like this is exactly like Firoz democratic injected, wait and sex. But second, that is exactly why this is really important. Because the whole metric from this debate, not only from the leadership, but also from regarding about the society. But talking about the society level narrative, let's talk about how exactly they also used to say like, yeah, trust us, anything else like Soviet or anything else. This is really hard regarding about society because they never explain to you how exactly the society is going to be acted. They talk, but society itself, from the characteristic society in dictatorship, A, they are brainwashed. B, it's really hard because they love Kim Jong itself. So many phenomena how exactly that society from North Korea and South North Korea love Kim Jong itself. So basically, citizen also a main component because so it's really hard the characteristic itself because like they are brainwashed, they're also afraid, they're also like have military things. So therefore, we need to stop approach to make sure they're considerate. Yes.
Using military power to banish this dictatorship, it's just the first step. Western will keep engaged until they achieve stable democratic government.
Once again, our burden of proof not explain to you that how Islamic is going to changing but like to become democracy, but how exactly that this is one of manifest for you to transition from dictatorship toward regarding about these things. Even all of these things, it's going to be really hard for them to approach how exactly that you're going to explain anyways. But talking about this thing, let's engage toward the government itself. Why? What makes really difference regarding about opening government? A, government already talked to you like about the economy things and anything. But actually, it's not going to be that reasoning is not really stronger because like economic things is not an urgent matter. This debate is talking about like the strategy being implemented or not because this debate is not going to talk about choose which is better is democratic or dictatorship. So therefore, we also they talk to you about like very low regarding about rebellion of nation stuff. The prerequisite for you rebellion to happen is requirement the society to work together. Therefore, how is it possible in the society to work together at the end of the day? At least in our side of the house, there is a phenomena. Oh, there is a golden handcuff. So there is a discussion regarding about the narrative. But at least in the side of the house, there is no phenomena. There is no same value from this society. So therefore, it's really hard to approach from the dictatorship to be democratic itself. So therefore, proud to be CG.
Each member call upon the opposition work around both the state security around.
Starting with 3, 2.
So under the motion, this House supports the use of golden handcuffs by the West. First, I'd like to rebut to the previous side's arguments and then move on to what we have extended and what the clashes that I have defined in this debate. So what the closing government has told us was about how closing government has told us was about like it's more important to protect the citizens and how without this golden handcuffs, it's impossible to keep it. So they are going to keep this dictator safe and so it's not going to kill off citizens, and without this golden handcuff, it will kill these citizens, right? However, we believe that the golden handcuff is not an incentive to make these dictators to actually step down, right? Because it's actually a harm to it. It's an insult to himself, right? Because why? It's actually so the dictator taking the context of this dictator, he knows completely well that everyone is against him, like the citizens and the global society, right? However, like losing this political power by passing this motion, by using these golden handcuffs, we are just confirming it once more time that losing this political power is so important for the global society, and that is what the global society wants. But so this is no thank you. So we believe that this is making the citizens just more suffer because it's just going to make like the loss of political power the ultimate goal out of the global society, and just the negative influences are just going to resume to the citizens itself. So we are not going close to any negotiating or like wishing those dictators to actually step down by his own will because of other external forces, but it's only making it worse, right? And also, they talk about like how like for dictator citizens who work for the dictators are really valuable human resources that need to be sustained to sustain the state itself. However, we believe that they are focusing really on the issue of restoring a country and reforming the country after using these golden handcuffs. But we believe that like it's like for worker dictators, and they are more likely to go behind these dictators' forces rather than become part of the society in this status quo without these golden handcuffs. Because without these golden handcuffs, with these golden handcuffs, we are giving them the power to actually go behind these powers of the dictators. Yes.
And actually, why the reason like people are so afraid of the dictatorship is because they are afraid to change, to stepping down. It's because they are afraid to abuse from the society pressure, abuse from the jail itself. At least and outside the house can be considered as a safety net for them to make sure like they're okay at the end when they're stepping down.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in my questions. But anyway, about the fear and all the fear of the dictators, and also like talking about like what they talk about, like the democratic message of how like violence is not a thing. However, we believe that violence is a thing when it comes to punishment in democratic society. Why do we have prisons, and why do we give punishments to the criminals in the first place, right? So it's not the message we want to send as a democratic society where like Obama killed like Osama bin Laden for justice in the 9/11 terror, right? So we believe that they're sending the violence is not a thing message doesn't stand in this state. Also, moving on to my clashes, it's like the only clash I think is about how like the world looks like when we operate these golden handcuffs. So what the government gives us, open government gives us like about how like we foster peace and economic revenue and human rights, but we believe that they are completely focusing on how like democracy is good in the first place, and we agree to that, and still buying their cases, we believe that their case doesn't stand for these reasons. First, even if we buy their case, like stepping down is the act of letting all this despot immunity to be accessible for the citizens. Like so like the fear is going to make the citizens sway here and there, like our extension has already proved, right? So we believe that this person doesn't care about, this dictator doesn't care about the citizens. This immunity means that he can kill hundreds of people. So that means that they have no humanitarian values existing in him. So, no, thank you. So he might try to like strive new form of dictatorship as our alternative has already even like proved it. So the government is assuming everything will be so peaceful, like if we have these golden handcuffs in this dictatorship country. However, no, because we still have the risk of repeating this dictatorship, which is even worse. Because why? Because we have the intervention of the Western countries coming into the society, coming into this country, and they didn't solve it. But in the long run, they are just ruining it and worsening the case and just having no capability to even solve these problems that are going in these dictatorship countries. So also not only this, we believe that these gaining power, using these golden handcuffs is giving the social message that gaining political power is so good. They talk about democratic social messages is so important, right? But what they are doing is actually killing some people and publicizing it to the media and telling that I can become this villain like this Kim Jong-un and put my power to control this country is so available in this country, and I can do that too, right? So we don't want that social message to be out in society. So that is still in the interest of these Western countries because they are the democratic societies that want world peace. So we believe that these are the reasons why we win this debate. So also talking about what the government completely misses is about the human rights. But human rights is not going to be completely solved in one sudden chance. They say it's the fastest process of using these golden handcuffs, but no, because slow and concrete process is much more explicit, and it's not going to have the fear of citizens, where the fear is going to sway these citizens what kind of actions they are going to need, especially to pursue these democratic nations without with these fear in context. So the government's soft approach, we believe that is going to fall because they give no solvency that they wish to have with these democratic societies, and also it's giving more power to the dictator itself and the people behind him. So we believe this is the reason why we win this debate.
Yeah, I'm trying to know.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much. And that's really fun.
Yeah, that's right. Fun round.
Oh, HYDS
Yeah.
Seungmoon